He wrote one of the most played songs in American history, and for years, he wasn't even allowed to sing it. Victor Willis was the actual voice behind Village People's biggest hits: The Cop, The Naval Officer, the man who co-wrote YMCA. But here's what most people don't know. He walked away from the group not once, but twice. He fought a legal battle just to get credit for songs everyone assumed belonged to someone else. And just one day before his 75th birthday, the man behind one of disco's most iconic voices was gone. This is the real story of Victor Willis. He died one day before his 75th birthday, the same week the song he co-wrote was still playing at ball games across America. Here's the story YouTube never told you about the real voice of Village People. Victor Edward Willis spent decades as the voice most people associate with disco's biggest anthems. As co-founder and lead singer of the Village People, he didn't just perform the group's signature hits, he helped write nearly all of them. On stage, he was easy to spot, dressed either as a police officer or a naval officer, depending on the number. Music wasn't something Willis stumbled into. He grew up the son of a Baptist minister and learned to sing in his father's church long before disco existed. Acting and dance training took him to New York, where he landed a spot with the respected Negro Ensemble Company and eventually appeared on Broadway in the original run of The Wiz, later reprising the role in Australia. Before Village People took shape, Willis had already released a handful of albums on independent labels through the mid-1970s. That work caught the attention of French producer Jacques Morali, who reportedly told him he dreamed of Willis singing lead on one of his records, and that the record would be huge. Building Village People. At the time Willis signed on, Village People wasn't really a group, yet more of a concept waiting for a lineup. Their self-titled debut dropped in July 1977 and took off in the disco boom, powered by tracks like San Francisco, You've Got Me, and in Hollywood, Everybody is a Star. When Dick Clark invited them onto American Bandstand, Morali and Willis scrambled to actually assemble a touring band, famously recruiting members through a trade paper ad calling for mustached men who could dance. From there, Willis co-wrote and sang lead on the songs that defined the group's run: Macho Man, YMCA, In the Navy, Go West. All massive hits. He exited the group in 1980, right as the ill-fated film Can't Stop the Music was in production. He skipped the movie itself, but still contributed lyrics to 2 songs on its soundtrack, a film now remembered as one of Hollywood's notable box office failures. Morali lured him back in 1982 for a new album, released stateside the following year as In the Street, but Willis left again in 1983. Decades later, he resurfaced publicly a 2013 appearance on TV1's Unsung covering disco's history, and a 2016 spot on To Tell the Truth that ended with him singing YMCA over the credits. Life outside the group. After parting ways with Village People, Willis largely stayed away from recording and wouldn't perform the old hits. That changed briefly in 2010, when he sang the national anthem at MLB ballparks and led crowds through the traditional 7th inning YMCA sing-along. One long-buried project finally saw daylight in 2015, a solo record called Solo Man, recorded back in 1979 and shelved for over 35 years before release. Fighting for his songs. Willis also spent years reclaiming ownership of his own catalog. A 2012 federal court ruling out of Southern California sided with him, affirming that a co-writer who'd transferred away copyright could later terminate that transfer on his own. That gave him a 1/3 stake in songs including Go West and YMCA. 3 years later, a jury found that only Morali and Willis had actually written 13 of the group songs, cutting Henri Bellalo out of the credits and bumping Willis's ownership on those tracks to 50%. Back in the group. In 2017, Willis and Bellalo settled their dispute outside of court, and Willis returned as lead singer, picking touring and recording back up. The following year brought talk of new projects, a studio album, a Christmas video, a reissue of a 1979 live recording. That Christmas material eventually produced Magic Christmas in November 2022, which reached number 23 on Billboard's Adult Contemporary chart, the highest any Village People single had ever climbed. Music and politics. Willis pushed back publicly in June 2020 when Donald Trump used Macho Man and YMCA at campaign rallies. By September, though, he'd softened his stance on YMCA, specifically a Reversal Saturday Night Live parodied that October, prompting Willis to once again restate his objection to Trump's use of the group's music days later. Meanwhile, that November, Biden supporters in Philadelphia celebrated his Pennsylvania win by dancing to YMCA in the streets. Willis later admitted on Facebook that the financial upside had swayed him. He estimated the song had generated several $million in revenue thanks to the ongoing use, and said he was ultimately glad to have allowed it. By January 2025, Village People were booked to perform at Turning Point USA's inaugural ball marking Trump's second term, and the group played YMCA days later at his pre-inauguration rally in Washington, their most visible of several inauguration week appearances. Personal struggles and later life. Willis battled addiction for years after leaving the group, including a 2006 arrest that led to probation and treatment at the Betty Ford Clinic. He returned to public life the following year, describing himself as thinking and seeing more clearly than he had in years. His first marriage to actress Felicia Ayres Allen, later known as Felicia Rashad of The Cosby Show, lasted from 1978 to 1982. The two met while working on The Wiz. Willis wrote and arranged her disco album Josephine Superstar, with Village People providing backing vocals. He remarried in 2007 to entertainment lawyer Karen Huff. Willis died on June 30th, 2026, following a brief but aggressive illness. He was 74. Victor Willis gave the world some of the most joyful, most played songs in music history, songs that still fill stadiums, weddings, and street parties nearly 50 years later. He fought to get credit for that work when the industry tried to write him out of it, and he won. He walked away from fame more than once, came back on his own terms, and never stopped being the voice behind the music, even when the spotlight moved elsewhere. He passed away just one day short of his 75th birthday, but the songs aren't going anywhere. Every time YMCA plays at a ball game, every time Macho Man comes on at a wedding, that's Victor Willis. That's his legacy, and it's not stopping. Rest in peace, Victor Willis. Thank you for the music. If you enjoyed learning the real story behind the man who built Village People, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We cover the true stories behind music's biggest icons every week. Drop a comment below and tell us, what's your favorite Village People song? And if this video moved you, give it a like, it really helps the channel. See you in the next one.